Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
Okay. Meeting of the Finance Standing Committee is called to order at 9:33 a.m. on April 23rd, 2025. We'll start with the roll call, because I remembered I have not done that the past 2 days. Alderwoman Finlayson.
Present.
Alderwoman O'Neill.
Present.
Alderman Huntley is also present. Next up is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as provided?
Move approval of the agenda as written.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And next we have approval of the minutes from yesterday's meeting. And once again, we'd like to thank Ms. Jackson for turning those around so quickly. Is there a motion for approval of the April 22nd Finance Committee meeting minutes?
Move approval of the minutes as written.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then I see we have an update on our budget book in front of us. Mr. Trudeau, is there anything you want to speak to on that before we jump into our presentation?
This is just the correction that you noted yesterday with the grade for the chief of staff.
Got it.
Thank you.
I see that. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's do this right now.
Well, I know Recreation and Parks is going to make us happy, so we will clap along. And Director Johnson, we will turn it over to you.
Good morning. For the record, Rosalind Johnson, Director of Recreation and Parks. With me, I have our brand new marketing coordinator, Ms. Haley Stern. I also have Division Chief Lakeisha Simmons and Division Chief Rodney Dillard with me. I just want to brag for a second and say I have the best job ever. Other people might argue with me, but I think I win. And the reason why I have the best job ever is because I work with the best team in recreation and parks in the country, and they're behind me. Could they please stand up? And so they are an amazing team. They rise to the occasion every single time. You might see some new faces. Leandra Parkinson is, Leandra, can you wave? She is our newest recreation leader Recreation Leader 1. I want to make sure I get it right. But if you've seen new programming at PIP, it's Leandra's work. And the whole team has really pitched in and helped. We have Chucky Lloyd, who is also one of our Recreation Leader 2 programmers who's done a yeoman's job. But our entire team, Andrew Patterson just put on the Girls Play Initiative, which I'll talk about. Paulette Carroll, along with Chris Beck, run the Stanton Community Center. And Pam makes sure that everyone is paid and payroll is on time. She's here for only an hour, though, so if you see her walk out, that's because payroll is due today. But she's also one of our critical minds who does an amazing job. So thank you. All right, so we think we have read the tea leaves, and we decided that pictures would best show you kind of what we do and big picture. This is from our Easter egg hunt this past Saturday. We are building a brand. This is the second year, and we didn't say it. Of course, we think it, but the Capital Gazette said this is the best Easter egg hunt in Annapolis. And I think it's because of the work that our team has done. When we put on events, we have to think broadly, and we want to make sure that we accommodate everyone. This exemplifies how we accommodated everyone. We had our superheroes or our special needs of all ages and all abilities at the first part of our Easter egg hunt. You'll notice the woman who's 39 years old, and she was really looking forward to the Easter egg hunt. She came with her caregiver. She had been talking about it for 2 weeks on end. And you'll see the little boy there who has a full leg cast, and his mom was like, well, I don't know, should he participate in this one or another one? And we were like, nope, this is perfect for him. And we did it on our basketball court so that there wouldn't be any mobility challenges. We had 12,000 eggs. The group that took the longest was our 4 and under, and they secured, I'll say, all eggs within 10 minutes. So people think, oh my gosh, 12,000 eggs, that should have taken forever. No. 10 minutes for the 4 and under. And there's a reason why we do what we do, and we appreciate you all for supporting us with our rules. No adults were allowed in the egg hunt areas. And some of the parents were like, my child's under 4, there's no way that they can do this. Otherwise, those children would have been trampled if we let the parents in. And they were shocked that their children could pick up easily. We had helpers in the egg hunt area, but they were shocked that their children could just pick up the eggs and put them in the basket. But this exemplifies what we do. This is our second year, and we're billed as the best egg hunt in Annapolis. So I'm very excited about that and our team. Next, this is a new program, and I'm excited that we have an environment where our staff can take risks and their ideas are heard. Bumper brought his son Aaron in, and he said, Aaron, just sit down for a second right here at the front desk. Aaron started greeting people, and so Bumper and Melissa were like, we should have a greeting program with our special needs community. They can either get volunteer hours, they could get paid, or they could just volunteer. So we had a resounding response to that. So every Wednesday and Sunday for our pilot program, you'll see special greeters. We call them our superheroes, but they do an excellent job in making sure people are checked in. They're greeting people with a smile. But that is thanks to Melissa and Bumper working together. They came up with the idea, and we said, let's do it. And so we're excited about that program. Next, this is our Greenscape. Today kicks off Greenscape for us. We're celebrating 33 years of Greenscape. And this past year, we won the statewide Maryland Recreation and Parks Association Service Award for Greenscape. And it's amazing to see everyone kind of come down and pick up their flowers and their trees and their plants and then go back to their communities and plant them. It multiplies the work of our amazing parks team. So that's a program that's near and dear to our heart. Next, we also want to make sure that people feel welcome, and we have to think about people's different needs. And so we attended a training, and we learned that our 2S LGBTQIA plus community sometimes does not come to our programs because there's a bathroom issue. And if our programs are long, they don't know what bathroom they should use. They feel uncomfortable using the bathroom they identify with. So we wanted to make it a safe place for people and meet them where they are. And so we turned our pool restrooms into gender neutral restrooms where you can just use the restroom. It's a bathroom, use it. So you'll see that coming through a little bit more too. We're doing the same at PIP. In Europe, people use the restroom they identify with. All restrooms, people just use them together. The stalls are a little bit longer from top to bottom. You just go in the restroom, do your business, and come out. So we want to make everyone feel welcome, everyone feel comfortable, and everyone feel safe. Our Girls Play initiative. Around the country, the numbers for young ladies in sports is decreasing. So we wanted to create an environment where girls could come out and try their hand at a new sport and see if they like it. Our job as a Recreation and Parks Department is to expose youth and the public and the adults to as many opportunities as possible so that they can then determine their interest. So they can try it and say, oh, I liked it. Try it and say, this isn't for me. But if they like it, they can get their developmental growth from us and they can learn about it. But we're not going to be experts. We want to turn them over to someone else once their skills get a little bit higher, so that they can develop and hone those skills with a professional, another professional where that's their area of expertise. Our Juneteenth event was a huge success. We got a little bit nervous. This was the largest event that we ever had done as a team, and our team rocked it out. It was from 3 to 7 p.m. By 7:45, every piece of trash was picked up and we were out of there. The community really responded positively to this. There were 0 instances of any types of challenges. They came, they had fun, they left, and they went home tired. So it was a great event. We're looking forward to doing it again this year. I spoke about us removing barriers at our Waterworks Park. You had to get a permit. And I'm appreciative of my team because we will have very heated discussions. Rodney and I were out at Waterworks Park and we were talking through how, you shouldn't have to have a permit to come and enjoy a park. People don't plan, tomorrow at 12 o'clock, I'm going to go to Waterworks Park. People are usually wake up in the morning, they say, oh, it's a great day outside. You know what? I have 20 minutes. Let me stop by Waterworks. So we wanted to make sure we remove the barriers. You don't need a permit to go to Waterworks Park. The park belongs to everyone, so we took the chains down. And Rodney and I made an agreement. We might have to revamp it once we open it up if we see there are any challenges. And to date, Rodney, we've had what? No challenges. So we have heated discussions and we talk through it and everyone's voice is valued. And if we make a mistake, we'll just revamp it and we'll address the concerns. But we've had no concerns or no issues. And as a matter of fact, people are very appreciative that they can just go. They don't need to pay for a permit. They can just park and enjoy the park. This picture, I would like to publicly thank Mr. Marcus Moore and his team. I hope he's watching. But as you know, we had challenges with our buses for summer camp. One of our buses, actually both of our buses were broken into. And so we did not have them ready in time for summer camp because there were some issues that we had to address. We had fleet to address so that they would pass inspection. But one of the buses was beyond its useful life. We purchased them very used. But this is at no cost, essentially, to the city. We were able to repurpose one of transportation's buses. And Marcus was kind enough to do the paperwork and turn over the keys to us. So we had a little bit of an early Easter Bunny gift. So we have a bus that we will be able to use during our summer camp program. The good thing about this bus is that if anyone has any mobility challenges or is in a wheelchair, we will be able to transport them as well. So we're excited about our adaptive reuse of transportation bus. Our skate park, our new skate park at Truxtun Park is completed. This is an upgrade, of course, from our mobile kind of ramps and pieces that we had to the skate park. We worked with the community, with the skating community. No one at this table is an expert as far as skating is concerned. So they were telling us, oh, you need this ramp, this side thing, and some other words that I don't necessarily know what they mean, but they know what they meant. And so we had Pilar, which is one of the best designers in the country in skate parks, design this. We tweaked it based on the feedback from the skateboarders. They compared it to other jurisdictions. Well, no, this one has this quarter ramp and we need a half pike and, all those other things. And skateboarders, if you're watching, I probably got those terms wrong, but we've heard nothing but positive things about this skate park. We will have our grand opening on June 7th, and we hope that everyone will be able to make it. We're in the process of working with the Barish family and our team to create the grand opening. We will have Chocolate Skate there, which is a huge skating group. If you're in the skating community, they'll be doing demos and all sorts of things. So we are once again excited to turn over this amenity to the community. All of these things are done with the help of our parks department, but they're kind of in the background. They help make things happen for our egg hunt. They put up the snow fencing and created the areas, but they rise to the occasion every single time. And there were some areas that were not plowed or shoveled, where children had to traverse to school. So our team went out there in the freezing cold with compacted snow and plowed the sidewalks in the areas so that children and adults would be able to commute back and forth to school, to work, to the bus stops, and all sorts of things. So our parks team is bar none the absolute best. We have had a major emphasis on training. We had our Trap and Skeet training. We had our customer service training when we went to Trap and Skeet. So we participated in Trap and Skeet. We had staff who were hesitant to shoot a shotgun, had never done it before. And when they hit that first shell, or the first clay, they were super excited. And I think we've created some forever Trap and Skeeters, but it was just an amazing time. And then we learned about customer service because we are front facing and we have to make sure that we keep our skills the best that we can. And we're providing excellent customer service to Annapolitans as well as visitors alike. Jennifer was able to open the Hacka pool on short notice. She was able to find enough lifeguards. And when I say find enough lifeguards, that was including her herself as well. She was often down there lifeguarding. She decided that she needed to do swim classes. So she led swim classes herself so that children who live in the Hacka communities would be able to learn to swim, particularly since we're surrounded by water. So it's a life-saving skill that lasts for the rest of their life. And we try to program for everyone, including the puppies. So we were able to have our first doggy dive-in in several years. We were rained out last year, but this year, this fiscal year, we were able to have a doggy dive-in, which happens before we close the pool. And the dogs had an amazing time. I feel like we had about 30 or 40 dogs. My dogs were there. They probably are not ready for prime time, so they won't be attending any other doggy dive-ins. But the other dogs that were well-behaved were there, so it was amazing. And we are working with the community. So this is our Cars Beach focus groups. And this was our first meeting to kick off with the master planners. And the master planners did an amazing job listening to the community and getting their feedback and asking probing questions. And as a result of that, we have our Cars Beach shoreline and coastal renovation that is going to be kicking off. This is the concept plan that is pretty much hot off the presses. We will have 300 feet, so a football size of beachfront area, but we also will have a get down, GET down, but because of the history of Cars Beach, it should be a get down. So it's going to be sit down to get down with nature. And we're working with Blacks of the Chesapeake to create a curriculum with Anne Arundel County Public Schools. So every child in Enter X grade will have a field trip to Cars Elktonia and learn about tidal and coastal waters, the Chesapeake Bay, and all sorts of things. So we are excited to be working with Blacks of the Chesapeake and Anne Arundel County Schools. They will also learn about the Green Book and segregation because that's a part of the history of Cars Beach. This we are super excited about. As you know, we're turning Stanton Community Center into a STEAM center. This is the gym floor that will be an esports arena. This is more than just a gym floor. You'll notice he's changing it with his iPad. This is a maze that children could walk through. It's critical thinking. We could do pickleball courts. We could do basketball courts. We could program whatever we want. We could also have videos. This will be an esports arena. That is another avenue to college, but esports arenas sell out 50,000 seat stadiums in 5 minutes. I don't understand it, but people want to watch people play video games. Colleges have video game teams. All of your NBA teams have video game teams as well. So this is phase 1 of Stanton Community Center. We've talked to Dr. Bedell because it's also an educational piece. You can start over again. This is also an educational piece for the students because we could put the periodic table on the floor and have middle schoolers come and find copper, find lead. For elementary school students, we could put the alphabet on the floor and say, find the capital A, find the lowercase b. We could put the solar system on the floor and they could visually see on a large screen how the earth rotates around the sun. I probably need to go to that class too. But the implications and the ways that we could use this floor are endless. And we'll be the first Recreation and Parks Department in the country to have this floor. But it is going to change the Stanton Community Center and the way that children feel about the amenities that they have to use. This is an investment deferred because this type of investment hasn't happened at Stanton Community Center in some time. So we are very excited to be able to bring this to the community. It also has a therapeutic piece where if you're hard of hearing, you might not hear where the ball is, but with the stars on the floor, you'll be able to see where the ball is.
Director Johnson, you seem like you're right on track, but I just want to give you a heads up. You got a minute and a half left.
Thank you. I'm up to 16 minutes and I'm almost done. Gateway Park will be coming on. We're working with the state and we're working with the Navy for our Gateway Park. As far as our performance measures are concerned, we have updated them in the system, but we were forming and storming, and now we think we're at a place where we need to look at our performance measures at the end of this fiscal year and start with new ones at the beginning of the fiscal year. And this is just some context for everyone to be aware of. And last but not least, we'd like to thank you all. And this picture of the flagpole is thanks to our parks team. The flagpole was put up in less than a week when some drunk driver actually hit the flagpole and knocked it over. But that's the type of work that our parks team under the leadership of Rodney Dillard does. Thank you, and we'll take any questions you may have.
Way to go. That was an impressive presentation.
Thank you.
In terms of getting us informed, sticking to the time, everything. Great, just great job.
Thank you.
And I do particularly want to thank you for that flagpole. That was very impressive for people to see city government can actually work quickly. So thank you very much. Normally I try and start us off with one big question before I bounce it to my colleagues, but I actually want to make a statement today. I see right now we have the harbor master under Rec and Parks. I'm very amenable to that, but it needs to happen through an ordinance change. And so I would like to make sure that we take that out in the budget book, put it back where it is required by the code to be, which is under the city manager, and that if we want to have discussions on that, do it through the process of an ordinance. So that's my statement, and then I'll bounce it all to Roman O'Neill.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the in-depth presentation. I loved it. I have a few questions as I went through the budget book. My first question was, I see a decrease in lifeguards and an increase in other. Is that just because we have a hard time finding lifeguards? I thought that we were short on lifeguards.
We do have a hard time finding lifeguards. It won't be a decrease in our staffing of lifeguards, but we found that many of our lifeguards will work as many hours as they get, so we don't need a bench, so to speak, of lifeguards. But there is a decrease in the number, but not a decrease in the hours.
Okay. Which leads to my second question. I know that in 2024, we had a lot of days where the pool was closed for lack of lifeguards. And do we have data on that? How many days the pool was closed because we didn't have lifeguards?
So the pool was only closed after our kind of the height of our season. That is a bonus time. Most pools close on Labor Day. We're open beyond Labor Day. So those are kind of bonus hours. Many of our lifeguards go back during once school starts because they're college students. So we don't really count those as days closed per se, because Jennifer tries to keep the pool open as long as possible. With global warming and climate change, we found that we've been able to stay open longer because, it doesn't really get cold now until November. So she usually closes end of September, beginning of October. So those days were kind of few and far between. But
It was never closed during the summer months?
No, not during the summer months, unless it was lightning, a threat of lightning, there was lightning in the area, or if someone unfortunately defecated in the pool or something. But those we follow the health code violations.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the health code rules, not the violations.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then Stanton Center. One of the things that I've noticed, and apparently it's happened for a long time, but I've noticed it more, is that it's often closed on days that schools are closed. Good Friday, Martin Luther King Day, things like that are, I would like to see us move in a direction where it was open. A lot of the community members, when we had our community listening session back in March, came out and said, especially when schools are closed, kids need a place to go. I would also like to see, in light of the fact that we can't get a half-court basketball net anywhere supposedly on Clay Street, if we could look at extended hours. Again, during the listening session, that was what came up over and over and over again, is kids need a place to play. And we're doing a lot of amazing things at PIP, and I believe Stanton Center should be the same, leading into, I guess, a timeline for when the new gym floor will be in place or started, how that will affect programming that's currently going on. So that's kind of a loaded question.
Sure. Thank you for that. You're speaking our language. We certainly would love to have Stanton open longer hours. Traditionally and historically, Stanton is run with full-time staff, and it's not run like PIP. PIP is more of a pay for play, and Stanton is come and play, which is my favorite version of recreation and parks. However, PIP can be run with part-time staff. Stanton does not have the number of part-time staff to be able to run the program. So it will be an additional financial cost. That's certainly something we could get to the council for consideration. We would love for it to be open longer. We do have some challenges with it being open longer during the winter months, because we have the winter warming program, which starts at 8 p.m. They usually start coming around 7-ish. So we've tried to kind of work through that, because they will, the people who are coming in for the warming center will traditionally be there when the kids are coming out. And so we kind of want to make sure that we manage both populations kind of transitioning over. But that's something we could certainly get the information to you for. We'd love to see them open on weekends too. Right now, if they're open on weekends, it's because Paulette has given up her time and is, doing a special project or a special program. But they're usually closed on days where the city has a holiday, because our full-time staff have those days off. So that's something we could certainly work on, look at, and get the information back to you.
Sure. In many companies, when it's a situation where there's a day off that we really should be open, they give them floating holidays. And I think the city can kind of go with that, should be able to go with some kind of plan like that, because of the recreation need and because of the needs of the community. So I would love to further that conversation and really explore those options.
Yeah, so we've looked at floating holidays. That really won't work, because we have 3 full-time staff essentially. So if you give them another day off, that's going to hurt the program on another day. What we really need to do is either get additional full-time staff or get additional part-time permanent staff who we can really kind of depend on to be there by themselves and run programs. So that would probably be the best way for us to look at it, because it's a hardship on the other days on everyone running a center that size with 2 full-time staff and 1 person is taken off and then trying to schedule it. It just does not work out well for us. But we've looked at those options, but the best option would be for additional staff. Oh, and the union agreement. Thank you, Rodney. Because we have to work through the union agreements. We can't adjust the schedule to avoid overtime, because they should receive, depending on the holiday, time and a half or double time.
And then, do you have a timeline for the gym floor?
We are working on that. We're still in the design phase. We're transitioning from one contractor to another contractor. We are hopeful that it will be in by the end of the year, beginning of January. But we're looking at the timelines. There's a 6-month lead time on the floor. Donovan Harold, who's the project manager, is working through with Mike Gracia in procurement to put the floor in order. And while it's being fabricated, then they will be doing the design changes and modifications, so that once it arrives, it's really only a week's time. We're also going to do the teaching kitchen too, and that those designs have to be finalized. But we're very close. Once we have everything lined up, then we'd be happy to share a timeline. Our next step would be to complete the design and then go to the community and get their input, as well as council's input, and then go back to the consultant, have them, just kind of fix the minor changes, and then roll it out. So we're looking at coordinating all of that. We're also looking at getting a construction manager at risk, which is a different way of us to be able to move the project forward relatively quickly. So we're working through kind of all those pieces to get it completed as quickly as possible.
So possibly starting in late 2025? Is that right?
Yes. Yes, early 2026. But that's very aggressive, but we've done aggressive things before.
And lastly, I know that it hasn't fallen on your portion yet, but Robert Eads Park will eventually be a park that you will be maintaining. So keeping that on our horizon, because I'm told that it's still in Public Works because it's still going through permitting and contracting. But that is also very close to the Stanton Center.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. Alderwoman Finlayson?
Well, I'm extremely disappointed. This floor is not going to be in before November. So I'm requesting now a personal invitation back so that I can see this awesome renovation of the Stanton Center. She's putting it in the minutes. Okay, so that will solidify it.
And it wouldn't be a grand opening without you, so we will make sure that you get an invite. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will definitely be.
And your birthday celebration, we plan. Oh, I'm sorry, Juneteenth. We plan on seeing you for that.
That's
as
already
well.
in the works, I assume. So so thank you for that in advance. Also, as the chairman, committee chair said, awesome presentation.
Thank you.
Really highlights what you're doing. Which is what the community wants to hear and see, and so things are moving in your department, and I'm thrilled. And everybody who sees this or who may be listening or who can tune in should be thrilled about what's going on in your department. And so it's a big kudo just to you, Ms. Johnson, but to your entire team. And you never miss an opportunity to highlight the responsibilities that your team members all have. And I hear it from the community when they step up to speak for you. And I say, she's given them the responsibility and they stepped up. They're all professionals. So I just want to say thank you for lifting up the department, lifting up the staff, and giving the community the kind of recreational program that we really need and deserve in the city. The Stanton Center the community of Stanton, Clay Street deserves something like this. They have always gotten whatever is left over. Okay, we got the new Pip Moyer Center and all the resources, and I was sitting here, when it opened, but all the resources and the great amenities were there. And where was Stanton? We couldn't even get bathrooms at Stanton. I'm not going to go negative. But this is just awesome. I'm speechless. I do have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you for the snow removal, because when I called and said, my kids can't get from Newtown to the middle school, you guys stepped in and cleaned the sidewalks for them. So thank you to the crew that came out. Even though you're not prepared for snow removal, you came out and did it. And that's one of the highlights of your department. You step in wherever it's needed. And so thank you for that.
Thank you.
The Stanton Center renovations overall, we talked a lot about the floor, but what's the status of the rest of the building?
Thank you for that question. So we have 3 phases. We've broken it down into 3 phases. So the esports arena and the teaching kitchen will be phase 1. We've met with the new consultant, which is phenomenal. They are phenomenal. Our team has been impressed with them. And what phase 2 or 3, and they could interchange depending on how the funding comes in. So phase 2 or 3 will be the rest of the building. And we have the drawings and the designs for that. The front of the building, which is the side where you come in, we're going to build up on that side. So we'll build up 2 stories. So it will be the same height as the roof of the gym. On the roof of the gym, we have 2 HVAC units, which are at the very beginning of their life. They're only 7 years old and they have a 20-year lifespan. Usually you can get 25 or 28 years out of them. So we didn't want to waste those funds that we've already invested. So we've decided to build up, which will give us more programming space in Stanton. And then on the roof of Stanton, we're going to have a playground. We're going to have a sensory garden and we're going to have a community garden because the Clay Street community is flanked by 2 cemeteries on each side is their green space. So we're going to have a community garden on the roof, a playground on the roof, because occasionally while the community is safe, but all you need is one stray bullet for people to not feel safe. And so a lot of children don't play outside because their parents are worried about their safety, but you can't get hit by a stray bullet on the roof. So it'll be their own oasis. We'll have a sensory garden too. So it'll be just a rooftop oasis above the city of Annapolis. So the rooftop will be phase 3 or phase 2, however we switch it. But we have a whole design that's 60% there as far as concept. Well, it's probably 80% there as far as concept. Now we have to get into the bells and whistles. We do have a sound studio, an innovation maker space, a computer lab. One of the things that the sound studio is going to allow us to do, we were just talking about it yesterday, is hip hop therapy. Many of the community members, both children and adults, have PTSD from all the things that have happened and occurred in the community. So mental health is a real thing. In the meantime, we are taking the Stanton Community Center youth to Camp Riverview. Paulette came into our office and said, my kids need to get out and they need to be outside and they need to take a vacation. We said, well, let's call our friends in DC and utilize their outdoor camp program. So when we were at our conference week before last, we met with DC and they said, sure, we will let you use it. Just tell us what you need. There's ATV riding, there's basketball courts, canoeing, kayaking, crabbing, fishing, all those sorts of things. So we're working with Chief Jackson, and we want to do a community retreat in response to what's happened there. And so the community retreat will focus on mental health, but also looking at what do you want your community to look like, and having an agreement with the community where they determine what the community looks like. Okay, and what is that going to mean for your community? What do you have to do? What do you expect other people to do? So it will be community driven, but we felt it best to get out of the community, get in fresh air, forest bathe, your blood pressure goes down. So many amazing things happen when you're in nature. And so the chief and I are working with our teams on that. That will happen this fall, once DC is through their summer camp program. And we're looking to take our youth there, hopefully next month in May, but it might be a little tight. We might have to postpone that till the fall as well. But we are working on Stanton Community Center. And one of the things that resonated with me was when I saw Mitchell Silver do a keynote for National Recreation and Parks Association. He's also the person who's doing our CARS Elktonia Beach Master Plan. But he had investments in the community in New York City. And he looked at communities that had not had generational investments in recreation and parks. And that means 30 years. They had not had any investment over $250,000. And he had this new park, and a little boy was standing outside. And he's like, why are you standing outside? He said, oh, that's too nice. It's not for me. And we don't want our Stanton Community Center participants to feel that way. We want them to see that this is for them because we're investing in them and it's what they deserve.
Question about I'm going to call it the green roof. You didn't call it that. Would that be something that the young people would be involved in putting together, maintaining, and the like?
Absolutely. It will be a community garden on the roof. So we'll have intergenerational programming there because we'll have a senior center, but the young people can grow fruits and vegetables and herbs. And so can anyone, who wants to sign up and get a plot. Which will be a raised garden bed, because we want it to be ADA accessible as well, because you'll be able to access the roof via an elevator.
There is, under the Adopt a Community program, there is a group that has community gardens on Clay Street. I would hope that they would be kind of involved also.
Absolutely.
If possible.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. A couple more questions. We give, and we learned some years past about how much we give away for free. Do you have an accounting of how much? I mean, your budget is adequate for what you're doing, or
We agree.
I'll leave it at that.
Yes, we agree.
Yes. But I know that you give away a lot of free stuff when the community has the need. Are you keeping track of how much you are giving away?
So yes and no. When we give scholarships, we have our adult Easter egg hunt and we raise money, and we do give some scholarships. We partner with people, for example, to be able to utilize the meeting rooms for free, for example, elections and all those things. So we could quantify it. We do have partnerships. We give away our parks for free. So that's, a little bit hard to quantify because it's what we should be doing. We have our Kids Day In, our teen nights, which are free, but that's us trying to remove barriers. So it's what we should be doing for the community. So in some aspects, yes, when the fee is waived, Melissa tracks those because it has to be waived through my office. But it's hard to quantify everything we do. We've tracked, like, for example, the snow removal. We, did that for free. So it's hard to quantify it all, but we try. But we could probably get some of it, maybe 60 to 70% of it.
And the use, I think when this first came to light, it was because of the use of the pool. And so I just think that it's important to let the community know that, there are opportunities, scholarships and fee waivers and that kind of thing through our program. So
Absolutely. And we've started the Code Red days where the pool is free on Code Red days too, because it's an amenity and an asset to be able to cool down, particularly if you don't have air conditioning where you live. So we've added those pieces as well.
Okay, my last question is about football. I understand we're creating a football something team or teams. My question, I guess, is we have community groups, and you know who I'm talking about, by the All-Stars, by example, who have football teams. Are we partnering with those existing teams? Why are we creating our own football team?
Excellent question. The All-Stars are focused on winning. And it's nothing wrong with focusing on winning. But if I'm a child who's never played football before, how do I start to begin to learn about football? As I mentioned earlier, we're developmental. That's our job. We want to be developmental, expose youth to as many opportunities as possible. When they get better, if they determine that's their interest, they should go on to the All-Stars, for example. If you're a child and you have no developmental skills, or you're throwing a football for the first time, or you're a girl, which many of our girls, when they go on basketball teams, they don't know how to dribble, they don't know how to pass, whereas the boys already know how to do that. How do you get involved? Annapolis used to have 3 football teams, if you count PAL, 3 football teams. We only have 1 now, which is the All-Stars. They're amazing at what they do, but they're focused on winning. We don't want to focus on winning. I want children to start a season, end a season, have fun, and learn the fundamentals. If they had a great time, then you go to the All-Stars. But we're not going to focus on winning. Now, we don't want to get beat up every week either, but they're different leagues. So the All-Stars are in the A League. We're trying to get into the C League, which is the developmental league, where you're not really focused on winning. You know your teams aren't that good, but you're focusing on the fundamentals. So I think there's space for both. We're not going to pull from their children. I mean, if you're excellent, I don't want to say we don't want you, but if you're excellent, we're not looking for superstars to be on our team and think they're going to play the whole game. We're looking for those children who wouldn't otherwise have an experience or have playing time when they're playing with a higher level team.
So how, and I appreciate that. And I know the All-Stars, you say they're about winning, but they also are about instruction. They have workshops.
Absolutely.
Required educational times where the kids have to do homework, study, whatever. But we have a serious problem with athletic fields. How are we going to add more for what we can't already accommodate?
So we have 2 fields that are getting ready to come online. Excellent question. We have Collison Field that we're currently doing a feasibility study for. Last fiscal year, Alderman Gay put the money in our budget to look at turning that into a rectangular field. So that's what we're working on. The consultants are getting ready. They've already started, or they're getting ready. They've started. So we'll have that information back. And Weems Whalen Field is another field that's been off for 13 years that's getting ready to be on. So we're going to start off with flag football, and then we're going to grow to our developmental football. But we will have more fields. So we're trying to get ahead of the game so that when we have more fields, we can really have a robust program. You start here, and then we forward you over to this group.
school system is also adding middle school
Yes.
intramural sports. So that creates another challenge for it, does it not? Because they're going to want their fields back.
So we're already working with them. Their fields back. They want use of their fields during the after school time. So we're still able to coexist right now. They are growing it. But the problem is that we don't have a continuity of sports. And I say a continuity of sports because we haven't looked at it. So if you're playing middle school football for the first time, you're not going to make the JV team. They're still going to, have tryouts and other things. But we're trying to get to a point where you can see, you start out with rec and parks. They'll show you how to punt, pass, and kick. And I'm oversimplifying it. Then if you think you're interested in it and you want to get a little bit better, then you go to the All-Stars, for example, or you go to PALS, even though PALS, I think, is getting ready. They're having some challenges with their teams. But that's what you do. So that's what we're looking to kind of have a continuum of sports. So once they get to middle school, we don't lose them because right now that's what we call the tweens, and we're losing them because there's nowhere for them to play or go unless you play on this amazing team, but you're not having your first experience in middle school.
And the field that you just mentioned that is
Williams Whalen? Collison?
Williams Whalen.
Okay.
So that's actually going to be coming online soon.
Yes, we are very hopeful. We have 2 of the 3 million that we need, and we are very close thanks to our budget manager who has worked, he's done a yeoman's job working magic. He's going to be invited, and his team is going to be invited to all of our ribbon cuttings and grand openings because they've made a way out of no way, and we are very grateful and appreciative to them for helping figure it out. So we're thankful.
So we're 1 million short.
Maybe a little bit less. He's working on finding some other money that we thought we had last year, but we're working through it. So yes, and we think we may have a plan for it, looking at some brownfields to greenfields. The mayor met with the Resilience Authority, and so they think that we might be able to qualify for some grants as well. And I forgot to mention, too, with Stanton Community Center, the additional funding, the other part of your question, we have $3 million earmarks in. We were the recipients of an earmark this past fiscal year with the feds, but the continuing resolution got rid of all 8,000 earmarks in the country, both Republican and Democratic, which is about $15 billion. So we have resubmitted earmarks for Stanton, three $3 million earmarks for Stanton, and one $3 million earmark for Carrs-Elktonia. So we have our fingers crossed. Our lobbyists seem to think positively. We were on the Hill lobbying for those earmarks as well, and then we'll have a follow-up visit specifically about those earmarks.
Okay, thank you. And again, kudos to you and your team. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got quite a few questions, and I
Sure.
appreciate my colleagues covered many of them. Briefly, could you explain a little bit more about what exactly the department's responsibilities are with the Haka pool and what that $45,000 is going towards?
So with the Haka pool, last year they provided all of the chemicals and the repairs, but this is for operations for a Haka pool. We would like to, and again, we operate Haka pool, and because we use the funding from the city, one of our goals is to make it accessible for everyone. So again, with removing barriers, Haka pool is free of charge. So anyone in the city, residents and visitors, actually can go to Haka and not pay, or they can come to Dunn, but they would have to pay those fees. So it's another amenity to have a pool for the community to be able to have access to. So it's for our operational needs for the pool.
So Haka will continue to own it. You guys are helping run it. $45,000 for the operation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Moving on to the Pip Moyer Center, there's a $315,000 capital outlay in our budget book here for that. Is that for the bathrooms or?
So it's for Velocity. The $300,000 is for Velocity. The building is 15 years old, and
I'm sorry, what's Velocity?
So Velocity is downstairs. So it's the kind of romper room indoor playground
Okay.
that the participants will use and parents will drop their children off so that they can work out. So it's also babysitting, but it's also an indoor playground. It has mechanical components that are beyond their useful life. We can't get the parts. We can't have it repaired. So it's time to redo the indoor playground.
Thank you. I actually remember one of your front desk folks telling me about that when I was in there not too long ago.
Yes.
Maybe this is a question for Budget Manager Trudeau. Is it appropriate to ask about capital projects now, or should we wait for the capital budget meeting?
I'm fine. with it.
If I think it's for Recs and Parks projects, you're
Yeah.
probably best to ask that question now.
Sure. With the bathroom redo at Pitt Moyer, I'm all over having gender neutral bathrooms. Just plain makes sense to me. But that's a lot of money. It's almost $300,000. What is? Could you explain that project a little bit more? I think it's $288,750 is what we have in the. This is in the capital budget book.
Page.
Page 63 of the capital budget. Again, I'm all over the idea and concept. It just seems like a lot of money to get it done. Could you explain what exactly is happening there?
Sure. We have to put ballpark hold figures in. So the urinals would have to be taken out. The stalls would have to be made longer. We'd have to redo kind of the doors. I believe we're going to leave the downstairs locker rooms kind of how they are because you could, utilize the other restrooms. But that was just an estimate. Of course, if it comes in less, then that's money that we'll have that either we can redirect to another capital project that's short, and we'll come to council to be able to change it. But that's ballpark. That's what we're looking at. Oh, and the outdoor restrooms too. Sorry, I forgot about those because we have the outdoor restrooms as well. And those are heavily utilized, and that's to make those gender neutral as well.
Gotcha.
Rodney, just use that.
Rodney Della, Recreation and Parks, Division Chief. What's going to happen is the outdoor bathrooms is going to require more plumbing and more bathroom stalls on both sides. So it's going to be added plumbing fixtures, added plumbing piping. There's a lot to it. So the plumbing is not cheap in this day and time. So it's going to be easy, a large amount of money.
Gotcha. Yeah. Once you tell me how much plumbing you have to redo, I can see how it gets up there. This is more of a comment than a question. Under the AIPPC fund budget, we have $322,820, which is perfectly reasonable for AIPPC, but it's listed as for performers. And I'd just like that updated to reflect the full scope of what AIPPC can fund, not performers. Not just performers, right? That is part of it. And then my last question, and then I will make sure we leave a little bit of time because I see Alderman Arnett has something. We talked, actually, maybe this is two. So I'll start with the easier one. The horticulturist is only a temporary position. That seems like a pretty specialized position. It's not just our general seasonal staff. Why is it that way? Why is it a temporary position?
Partially because she prefers it that way, but I'll let Rodney speak to it.
So each year, her job would be on the line. So she have to sign a new contract every year, and sometimes that job get challenged. So if we put it in a temp position, so it don't be challenged no more.
Okay.
But there's been years in the past that has been challenged almost every year, and it was scared the life out of her. So she's like, Ryan, is there something we could do? I said, let's try this, and we put her in a temp position, and she's fine with it. She's been here over 20 years. She's not going in.
And she doesn't want to be full time. If that's where you were going, we've tried, and she loves it the way it is, and it works well for us. And she's an amazing employee as well.
Somebody with a degree in horticulture. It sounds like a pretty primo job. So do let me know when she retires.
Been over 20 years.
Exactly. So I guess it'll be a little soon. Okay. Last question for you. Otto Roman O'Neill got at some of this, talking about the change with lifeguards. But there's quite a lot of kind of shifting around where it looks like it's mostly occurring in seasonal staff. but in some places we're increasing it at PIP and then we're decreasing it for health and fitness. Why? Why are we making overall so many changes around where seasonal staff are?
So we rely on our staff to manage their budgets. Jennifer,
Sorry, let me just preface this by saying I recognize this is kind of a micromanaging question, and so I will apologize for that.
Oh, it's
But I do
fine.
want to know.
Absolutely. So we rely on our staff to manage their budget that they've been given. So Jennifer goes over everything with a fine tooth comb. She's increased just an average kind of 2% for our equipment and supplies. She has her fitness down, and she has her fitness classes down. So she and our team have the ability to move it around within their budget. And so we don't really kind of say, no, you're not going to do this, or yes, you can do this. We rely on them to be the experts to do it, but I'll let Lakeisha, if she wants to speak to it a little bit more. Okay, she's good.
So then maybe just one more specific one. Why 12 more people at PIP?
So PIP has had challenges as far as our staffing is concerned. And when you hire part-time staff, sometimes when you first hire them, they realize they have to work weekends. But then when the reality kicks in that they have to work weekends, then it becomes a challenge. So we may or may not have more staff bodies per se working, but there are oftentimes where we need additional people. We're partnering with more people. For example, we had the senior health and fitness event with Anne Arundel County. They built it as a partnership. And we're like, whoa, you have 500 and some people here. No one told us you were going to have 500 and some people. So we have to staff accordingly. With people coming to PIP more, we need to make sure that we are staffed appropriately. For our special programs, we rely more on our PIP staff as well. Most of our special programs happen at Truxton Park and PIP. And so we're doing things differently. We have our front desk greeters that we did not have in the budget before. So when you come in, there's that person at that desk that gives you the personal touch. So this is kind of right-sizing our staffing complement that we should have.
Got it. And as I'm looking again at the salaries and benefits, it looks to me like actually PIP salaries and benefits is going steady, basically steady in real terms. So it's not like we're really adding a bunch of costs there. Okay, we got about 5 minutes left. Alderman Arnett, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll try to get my microphone closer. So first of all, thank you very much for the presentation. It helps us get to know Parks and Recs as you really are, not as the numbers display it. I also think it's a sign of a very good manager who brings their staff, recognizing that's what makes them successful. Very proper but smart move on your part. I would direct this to the budget director. I keep adding up on the staff. I keep trying to add up the columns, and I cannot get to a total of 241, and I think it's mostly because of what's in the temporary. So it would really be helpful if we could just have some column totals for that. But it does bring up a bigger point, which is you're managing a huge number of people, and particularly people that come and go. And I mean, I give you credit for doing that, but I'm going to ask, how are you doing? That's a big job. It's actually the biggest department in the city when you manage all these people.
Yes, summer is our prime time. And again, it's because of our managers. Our managers do an exceptional job. They know we're no nonsense. There are some times where, sorry, this is not a good fit for us because of the decisions you've made. But we do, our team does an excellent job of finding amazing people to be part-time, and they're dedicated. We have people waiting, kind of on the bench saying, can you put us in full-time? We want to work here. We love working here. And I think that's because of the environment that our team has created for people to work in. And we've increased our minimum wage too, where we're paying, in some instances, excuse me, a more livable salary.
Well, thank you for that. My last question, I'm looking on page 19 of your presentation where it says do-over. When will we see the do-over?
So we were prepping for this, and we were looking at our numbers and looking at our goals, and we're like, this does not really show what we should be looking at, what we should be counting. For example, programs per 1,000. So we're going to come back to the drawing board. We're going to have a conversation amongst ourselves and figure out what we should be measuring, what we should count, and then come back. So we're hoping to be able to roll it out at the beginning of the fiscal year, which means we're gearing up for our busy season, which is summer, and we're also looking at our goals. So we ask for a little bit of grace while we figure it out, but we don't want to count beans that nobody's going to eat.
So even though I recognize your presentation got us to know your operation on a personal level, I am a big believer in performance measures. I think the chair is also, but I don't think we're there yet. And
Right.
so I would offer a personal plea. I'm not interested in output. I'm interested in outcomes. And that's what was so impressive about your presentation. It was showing us outcomes. And the way we value how we distribute the city's money is based on outcomes. And so to the extent that you can not give us quantity measures, but quantitative measures and I would say this to every department, that will be a vast improvement. And I'm hoping it'll be something that all of the constituents in the city will go and see because, where our taxes are so high, where's it all going? You have quantitative measures as your performance measures. That, I didn't realize there were that many people being managed by Parks and Rec. And here's where it's all going. And yeah, I participate in that. The last thing, I was at that meeting over at Mount
The church.
Yeah. So in the future, I know Juneteenth is going to be out at the state fairgrounds, but I'm hoping out of that meeting, we're going to get it back in the city where it belongs. And anything you need from the council to help make that happen, I think just ask us because this is work. So, but thank you for being at that meeting.
Absolutely. And we agree wholeheartedly. That was a decision the bishop made. But we welcome, our team actually loves to work Juneteenth, Family Fun Day, and the Pride events, because those are, I think, the three big festivals that happen at Bates. And they look forward to them. One, because they love being there and they love to see the look on the community's faces, but it's also overtime for our team too. So,
well, some of us are very happy to help in whatever.
Well,
Thank
thank you
you.
all very much for being here. We appreciate your presentation. We appreciate you answering our questions. I'll remind any council colleagues who are listening that if they have remaining questions, we do have a spreadsheet to submit to you. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to recess until 10:45.
Move to second.
Move to second. I heard that. All those in
thought I heard
favor,
it.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting of the Finance Committee is called back to order at 10:52 a.m. on April 23rd, 2025. I believe I have nothing more to say other than to turn it over to our Director of Planning and Zoning, Mr. Chris Jakubiec.
Okay, thank you, committee members and Councilman Arnett. Let's go through the presentation. The highlights from the fiscal year 25. By the way, this presentation is based on the format that is made available to all the directors. I just wanted to highlight some things that we did in 25 and are still doing throughout the fiscal year. First, we're refocusing the department. It's been an ongoing work effort, and it's bearing fruit in terms of timeliness of project reviews and approvals. We're making commitment to customer service, particularly related to mitigating the effects of the EnerGov system, which is quite complex, and that's the portal for anybody who wants to seek a permit or a license within the city in the planning and zoning area. Small business permitting innovations. This is an initiative that I introduced with the Economic Matters Committee last week. It wasn't my intention, but it was an answer to a question. And I was, in any case, we're focusing on permitting changes, particularly related to small businesses and the complexities they face getting into older spaces or adaptively reusing spaces. And this is particularly relevant within the historic district, but it applies within the entire city. We've already made staffing changes. As you know, based on your decision to hire another building plans reviewer, we've doubled our capacity. We're actually doing things faster and reviewing more permits, improving more permits. The second part of that is realigning staff. We have a gatekeeper function now and a facilitator of permit process. We call her the permits administrator. She, through the code and class study, has now become effectively our real permits administrator and is calling the shots on when applications are due, when applications are deemed complete so they can start the process. And those kind of efficiency improvements are bearing fruit. We have a communications need. We need streamlining and what I'm calling ambassadors of values and principles. This is a small group of people in the building community and others who have had personal experience as business owners going through the process to advise us and be a sounding board for us. And not any formal committee. I've already reached out to many of these folks and talked with them. But those are the kind of four main elements of this small business permitting innovations that we're working on. Housing rehab, the council approved $500,000 for rehabbing of dwelling units in the housing authorities' properties, and we're permitting or we're licensing about 10 per week on average, although if we count the progress made just this past week, we're doing more like 12 or 13, maybe 14 per week because they had a fantastic week. And this is all with just the first tranche of funds, with $166,000. HACA has responded by moving quickly to rehab units. This means that people's lives are impacted with better improved units. HACA is better sustained financially because people pay rent when their units are licensed. And what we're focusing now with HACA on is ensuring that new families move into the now licensed vacant units. Comprehensive rezoning is a major work effort, and at the heart of what planning and zoning does, this is one of the premier things. We're working to implement the comprehensive plan through zoning and map changes, and you might have got a sense of that happening now in the Tyler Road corridor. And a set of zoning text amendments will be coming to the council fairly soon, I imagine, because the mayor is likely to sponsor a nice set of changes that will go a long way to implementing the comprehensive plan. And then we're in the process of hiring an economic development manager and replacing Teresa Wellman, who was our community development administrator. And those steps should be completed. We should have them on the payroll by July 1st. Challenges in fiscal year 25, short-term rentals violations are extensive. They exceed our ability to track and prosecute. And thankfully, the council has approved a staff person, and through the code and class process, we were delayed in hiring that person, but that has broken, and we have quite literally over 50 applicants, and they're still coming in. We have multiple pages of applicants' names to sort through. Building permits, we've made improvements, but much work is to be done, and I don't want to, this is not the venue to talk about that, but we're aware, but we are making, I think, progress, and we recognize more progress is needed. Property maintenance inspections, our capabilities have been limited because we've assigned a person to deal with the hack-up properties, and that has removed her from the day-to-day responsiveness that we're used to in other property maintenance areas. And that's why we've requested a property maintenance inspector in this year's budget. And general responsiveness to the council. I wish I could be more responsive to the council members and the mayor, all 9 of our board of directors, particularly on zoning changes. We do what we can, and we try to keep up with the work. But we also owe you a lot of technical advice, candidly, and research and better information, more timely information. We supply this information to many boards and commissions in the city, and that's one area where I hope to see improvements in the fiscal year ahead, and one area where we're proposing an enhancement as well. So in 26, we'll continue our comprehensive rezoning. Things are going to continue, but they're going to get a lot more complex. You're going to see a set of text amendments now, fine, but when you start seeing map amendments changing what zoning applies to what properties, things are going to get complicated, and it's going to take quite a bit of time and effort. And we're already working the Tyler Road corridor with public meetings. And those types of engagement will continue through fiscal year 26. Urban forestry, the council approved the position at the end of last year's budget, but that has been held up until now, and we're writing the job description, and that person is added to this budget by virtue of a decision made last year. Short-term rentals, we'll have a short-term rental manager here in the office fairly soon, I hope. We also have mapping now of the short-term rentals, and we're working through IT issues that allow us to track and present the difference between the licensed and the unlicensed units. This is a departmental type of effort. Arts and Public Places Commission has been assigned to the planning department, and frankly, we're very excited about that in our office, and we look forward to working with the commissioners. We feel like public art is part of the urban design of a city, especially of Annapolis. And our zoning code modernization. I look back at the goals and the benchmarks that have been set for many years, and this has always been on the list, but it hasn't been accomplished. And we deal with these code difficulties daily, and the residents in the community actually do too. And sometimes it constrains what we can do in terms of enforcement. Sometimes it constrains what we can do in terms of just negotiation with developers or with property owners. And sometimes it just results in less than ideal development conditions. So we're going to, we already started with the comprehensive rezoning, but we're going to continue modernizing the code over the year. And we proposed an enhancement to hire a planner to deal with zoning. Many jurisdictions have a zoning administrator, just the zoning administrator. We don't have that. That has fallen onto me in coordination with Lisa Minker, who's fantastic. But she does principally code enforcement. That's like on the ground type of enforcement. We make zoning decisions consistently and daily, and we don't have that capability in our office. Directors management. This is areas for my improvement and things that you'll see over the next fiscal year. Adopting performance and management standards, timeliness, performance, and service orientation. Up to this point, I've been learning about what we do and where our capabilities lie and where our strengths are. Now it's time to insist on some really specific and objective standards, and then to provide more rigorous oversight and accountability. We doubled our capacity to handle permits, and we are processing permits. About 21 permits on average every week are issued in the city, and just generally, since we hired our new building plans reviewer, our second building plans reviewer, we're doing 24 more every month permits. So that has shortened the time quite a bit, and we're actually working through the process with internally, and we have to coordinate with IT so that we can develop ways of tracking and timing when permits are received and when they're approved. That capability, you think it would be obvious, but it doesn't exist. To really, in this complex system that we have, it requires a lot of thought about how to arrange the software to produce those reports. Boards and commission functioning. I want to continue to improve the way that our boards and commissions function, and we've had a number of innovations over time. Principally, we need to establish findings of fact when our boards make decisions, and they need to be written and defensible. We've, as you know, most of our boards and commissions now meet in person, and that has, I think, been very beneficial to the functioning of our department. And lastly, reporting and tracking. I kind of hinted at this in the statement above, but more to the point, the council requires that in various code changes that you've adopted, it requires that our department make reports to you. There's a report on short-term rentals. There's a report on maritime industry. There's a report on economic conditions. And we really haven't kept up with that in a consistent way. I mean, they're annual reports, and there's no date says you have to have it done by that date. But we do have to get on a cycle of producing these reports, and that takes some time and organization. We're working on this year. Context to be aware of, just some things to think about. We're seeing an uptick in violations of approved plans. And by that I mean once an applicant has an approved plan, the contractor comes and decides to build in a way that's different than what was approved. This has caused an inordinate amount of delay and wasted resources for our staff, which means there's less time doing the work for other residents of the city. We've also seen unauthorized demolitions. Once project starts, developers say maybe it's too complicated to maintain this wall, to shore up this structure, so they demolish this part of the structure that was meant to be preserved. And this is not a kind of a unique one-off. We're seeing a real pattern here. And concerns about affordable housing conditions generally. It was my understanding as I first got into this position and learned more that the most significant problems were centered on HACA's property, the public housing properties. That's not the case at all. Admiral Oaks is a condition, a situation that has generated a lot of concern. Residents came to a standing committee meeting on housing equity and said, enough is enough. We've been dealing with this, sure enough, for decades, flooding and mold and poor grading. And so we've expanded our inspections to what's outside the building, not just what's inside the building. And we're holding Admiral Oaks substantially accountable, and far more than I think anybody ever anticipated our office could. And they are very compliant with our direction. We're very appreciative of that, because I think the end result will be that these longstanding issues will be resolved, or the units will be vacant, right? Because these units have undergone a lot of water damage over the years. So, but those two conditions are something for the council to be aware of, and things that we're encountering now. And then within the department, these are not citywide issues, but they're important to us. First, our space is really constrained. We're not asking for more, but I want you to know that we need money to digitize records so we can get rid of file cabinets. And we put a $10,000 allotment in this year's budget. We imagine that would go at least 3 years, every $10,000 every year for 3 years. And that would free up space that we need for staff. And then our office walls haven't been painted. There haven't been any painting in that building for perhaps since the city moved into it. And it's showing wear and tear, and it's just kind of demoralizing. We thought about doing it on a Saturday ourselves, but we ultimately said, no, it's not our job to come here on Saturday and paint. But we're asking in this budget $20,000. I actually proposed removing it from another account, but ultimately the wiser viewpoints came to the fore, and we decided that the money was best expended through the general services department. But we really need to ensure that that funding is spent beginning in July 1st. My staff really want it. I want it. I noticed it the first day I came, literally the first day I walked in. I hate that people come to our office and see uncared for spaces. So that's all I have in terms of the presentation.
That was some good timing. I think you have less than a minute left, so you just about hit it right on the mark.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Jakubiak. If you've been watching these presentations, you know I normally start with one kind of big question. I think you answered the one I was going to ask around why the metrics aren't in here. But the other one that I have for you is planning and zoning might be getting the most number of new positions in this budget. And I understand those are substantially paid for by increase on fees. Could you please walk us, and maybe the budget manager or finance director would help with this, but could you please walk us through exactly how much more these 3 new positions are going to cost, why you think they're needed, and how they're getting paid for?
Okay. I can't answer precisely how much they're going to cost. That would be
Sure. Yeah. I mean, take that as a collaborative
but
question.
yeah, I would ask that the experts in finance help me with that. But we can talk first about the zoning and enforcement planner. It's needed because we have a substantial burden of work in zoning. We are the planning and zoning department. We don't have the expertise in zoning. I do personally, but I need to do other things that are important for the city. The second is administrative assistant. I'm running essentially 2 separate departments, merging them into one. I don't have administrative assistants. I have to call upon various staff to print reports, to manage emails, to set up meetings, to do the basics. We have an assistant to the director. That's her position, but she's been more like an operational chief to a department who's been helping essentially run the operational parts of the office. But she herself is engaged in a daily basis on licensing and permitting. So we don't have the capability just to manage the daily commitment for time that I need. So I need staff to support my office, if you will. So the person we're looking at is one of the lower level administrative assistants that could grow with the department. And the property maintenance person is the third one. And property maintenance inspector, as I mentioned, we've shifted a person out of property maintenance, daily property maintenance, into focusing entirely on housing and subsidized housing and the licensing and remodeling rehab of housing units citywide. So we don't have the same capabilities that we had even a year ago to respond to the normal course of property maintenance issues. So those are the three that I'm aware of. There's a couple others I mentioned, but they were approved in last year's budget and they weren't filled yet.
So maybe I'll toss the question over to Budget Manager Trudeau to explain to us how, because I can look in here and see, you know, we've got the fees increasing on certain things, some by pretty substantial amounts. But how are we estimating how much those fees are going to bring in? And is it fair? One of the things I want to get at here, is it fair to say that these three positions are fully paid for with new fees? Or if not fully, what percentage?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair to say. Those new fees, I forgot the last spreadsheet I sent to Jake, but would generate over $600,000, more like over $700,000, I think. And that doesn't account for the fines that we're proposing be increased too. I asked that Jay not include those as revenue because they should act as a deterrent. We hope we don't have to assign fines, but the principal fee would relate to licensing of rental units, and we have well over 600 units. So, you know, you increase that fee by $25, that raises $125,000. So, yeah. So, yeah, my attempt has been to offset the staffing with new revenue.
Thank you. I got a handful more here, but I'll turn it over to Alderwoman Finlayson to start us off, and then to Alderwoman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the explanation of the increase in staff. I think most of my questions, there are few, are around staffing. We had a conversation before the meeting, but we seem to be putting more and more on the plate that I consider an already full plate. And you are assuming these additional responsibilities. And I want to make sure that we give you the adequate staff that you need to be able to accomplish the things that we want you to accomplish. So are these positions already included in the mayor's budget?
Yes.
And are there additional positions that are needed to fulfill everything that's already on your plate? I know it's a.
No, let me. To be totally candid with you, and I should be honest. I think we're in a bit of an experimenting stage. You can look at our budget since I've been here, and we spend less than we've been budgeted for. Maybe probably mean less than what the city's paid before I was hired, because we've allowed two staff have retired, and we've not filled the position. One highest paying staff retired, and I've not filled that position yet, because I wanted to test a different model, a flattening of that division in our organization, and elevate into a leadership role two people that were working under somebody else. And we're producing more now than we were before. It's a big win for the city. So, but if we start getting major developments coming in, I may need to fill that position, or what we call underfill, fill it with someone on the same level as our senior planners, who's not making the highest salary in the city. And so we can build our team capability. We also have a part-time worker who does planning. When she steps away full-time, we're going to have to test whether the three remaining planners can handle the workload. So I can't answer definitively, but I know that we're in constant testing and working out details. The community development manager was a longtime employee, fantastic. Over the years, her salary increased quite a bit. She was essentially a chief of community development. I didn't have that title, but it was paid at that level. But I'm seeking to underfill the position with a senior planner who's capable, but also brings planning skills to the department. Again, saving the city resources, money, because it's a lower paid position, but also with someone who's has the the capability to work with our other planners in a team. Again, sort of flattening the organization a little bit and promoting more crossover rather than how things had been, where everybody's in a silo. So it's hard to answer the question directly. But I know generally within our most stressed section is permitting and inspections. And that's where the citizens of Annapolis have high standards. And that's why we're desperate for that property maintenance position. I mean, we don't have to do it. If we don't do it, we just can't fulfill our maintenance on the schedule that people expect. And it's fair if the city wants to make that determination. But I think I'm judging, this is my judgment now, and John Manasseh too, who runs that division, we're judging that we need that person in order to just keep up. Because if we have one person out sick, and last year we did for an extended period of time, we struggled because we had one person devoted to HACA and one person on an extended medical leave. We really had one property maintenance. So we had our building inspectors doing maintenance. We all tagged in, worked together. But I'd rather have the capacity in our office than not. So that's why this position's important.
Well, and that's what we want. First of all, we want to be able to allow you the changes and reorganization that you're doing.
Yeah.
Because I think we all feel that it's going to be beneficial to everyone. But at the same time, and that's not a but, we want to give you the support that you need and the staffing. And maybe even if that staffing is a cushion for odd circumstances or whatever. But, our staff, we are very fortunate that our department heads and our staffs in general work to the occasion. You will give us your all plus. Everybody does it, every department. And we truly appreciate it, but we sometimes take advantage of that because we keep giving you more. Because you're rising and you're not telling us no, and you're getting the job done, but you're struggling because it's stressful. It's too much. So anyway, I just want to make sure that you have the opportunity to ask for what you might need that's going to fill, because you know where we're coming from for the most part and what expectations we have.
Right.
So I just want to make sure you know that we want you to ask for what you need and what you think you're going to need because of pending legislation.
Right.
So that's
Thanks.
really nice.
Fair enough. I appreciate that. And we will ask.
My next question has to do with the HACA inspections, and you said you were committed to 10 a week. We're up to maybe 14. What does it cost us for each one of those?
I can't do the math right now, but they vary. The units that are moderately damaged or not up to standard can be fixed at a relatively low cost, say $1,000. But there are units that have seen substantial damage and neglect that require changes to roofs and change of insulation and repair of plumbing and fixtures and new carpeting and floorings. It could range up to $30,000 to $50,000 on some units. So that is on the outside, but it really depends on the condition of any unit. And as we get closer to completing them, and I'm trying to get all the units licensed by July 1st. That's what we're pushing to do. But we don't manage that. I mean, HACA sets that. They deliver on that promise. But internally, our staff is geared to do that. And we work very closely with HACA. They have a fantastic manager now that actually came back to work because of the funding. It allowed them, and because a portion of that funding was able to go to that salary, they were able to hire someone who could actually do this work. And he is fantastic and working very closely with our team. So the cost range, it really, it's hard to pin down.
So in essence, when we go in to inspect and we find issues, we fix them.
Well, we don't fix them. I mean, HACA fixes them.
But the 500,000 isn't that for the repairs or?
Yeah, so the money is a grant to HACA, so they have the resources they need to.
Okay.
to fix things so we can license them.
And it was mentioned in the mayor's budget that there was another $500,000 from the governor's office for this purpose. So, and am I mistaken?
In the mayor's office?
Ms. Pettit mentioned it in her presentation. And maybe I'm confusing it, but I thought,
not in-
and I
not in
asked
the
the
mayor's
question
budget.
about
State.
how that money was being used. She said something to the effect that there was $1 million that came in, and it's in her presentation from the governor's office. And I thought she said half of it was, half of it was for HACA.
Okay.
So maybe I'm mistaken, and I can go back to her presentation, but I'll come back.
I don't believe it's city funding that we're talking about, but let me gain some clarity from her, and I can report back.
Say that again.
I don't believe it's city funding that we're talking about. I think it might be, you said state?
Yeah, that is a state funding grant that the city is seeking, the mayor's office is seeking, that would sustain the progress we're making. Because as you know, every year when we go back to do new annual inspections, there are going to be new issues. So this is an ongoing commitment. And
Okay, so the $500,000 that the city committed is the $500,000 that you're utilizing
now.
now.
Right.
But future funding may be part of that funding from the governor, from the state,
Yes.
for sustaining this
Yes.
program.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Painting your office, totally ridiculous. Why don't we have a ongoing schedule? And I know this is not for you, this is for Director Vogel, but I would think that we'd have an ongoing schedule of all of our offices being painted on a rotation basis and not after 20 years when you have to ask for it. So I assume that this is in the mayor's budget also, so it shouldn't be an issue.
I'll just state that we do have a capital project that is city facility improvements that does have, if I remember correctly, has a chunk of capital reserve funding towards it. I may be wrong with that. We can check. It does have a fund balance that can be used towards these efforts. And we have in the operating in buildings, there is a chunk of money that can be used for this as well.
Okay, so I should ask Director Burr to make sure that there is a permanent rotation.
Or perhaps the new central services director.
Or the new, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's right, I forget we have a new, yes.
Can I
Thank
actually
you.
tap in on that one? Because
Sure.
I have a follow-up question. So I wanted to understand that one. What you're saying makes perfect sense, Director Jakubiak, except that aren't we about to, you guys are in the Gorman Street building, no?
Yes, we are.
And aren't we about to leave that in the next year or two and move a lot over to the new building?
I understand some city staff or departments will move there. But I believe we're going to stay in this space on the third floor.
Okay.
Well, even if
And if
we
we weren't,
are
somebody
in
else
2
would.
years,
Yeah.
it needs to be painted. These are working conditions that should be amenable to our staff. So that's my concern.
I'm going to recognize Alderman Arnett.
Yeah.
May I
If he
ask-
can be brief.
We
Well, I have-
pay
wait,
an
wait, I have one more
incredible amount
question.
of rent for the Gorman building. I think the building owner ought to be doing that. I mean, it is outrageous the amount of rent we pay, and we need to check the lease that we have on Gorman, but you would think they would be doing it.
I think I agree with that, and I appreciate you being brief. And the floor is back to Alderwoman Finlays.
Well, one last question, and that is, are there any enhancements, Mr. Kubiak, that were not included in any requests that you made that were not included in the mayor's budget?
No, I think every request I made was included. Even request I didn't make was included.
Oh, well, that's a good thing. That's his great anticipation, or Mr. Moran's anticipation. All right, thank you very much.
Alderwoman O'Neill, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions and I lost my page. Where in the list of staff is the short-term rental manager? Thank you.
Mhm.
I lost it.
Are you referring to the list of staff that's in the the budget book.
Correct.
planning and
yes.
zoning?
Page
Yeah.
73 in the budget book.
Yeah. I owe finance a revision to that because it's not complete. It doesn't reflect all the positions that we have, or that position, or the urban forestry position that the council approved, which are, as I understand, in the budget, but they're not listed on this.
Urban forestry is in there.
Just one urban forester or two? Yeah, so we have another that the council approved at the end of last year's budget, kind of an assistant urban forester.
Okay, so that needs to be added on. But that funding for those two positions would be in the FY 26 proposed, the 5684.
I believed it's in this year's budget, like this current fiscal year 25's budget. That's what I've always believed because it was approved by the council last year. So I don't know whether it's like specifically called out as an enhancement in this year's
I
budget.
think
or-
that's a question really for the budget manager.
Part of our work is going to be working with the director, make sure the staffing summary is correct, and then, of course, salaries and benefits should reflect
Okay,
that number.
okay. So technically, the number of positions is growing from probably 43 to 40.
It's a net add of
7.
3. So if those were included last year, right, they should be reflected in 25 as well as 26.
Right.
So the
Those
net,
two are not on last year's.
correct. So it would
Last
be,
year should technically say 43,
that's correct. If that's,
and then we're
Yeah,
adding
unfilled.
3 more positions. Okay,
So it's actually up to 47 is what we're saying?
correct.
Or 46?
It'd be 46. Right? Oh, 46. Sorry, I can't add today.
44 and 3 is 47.
43.
Okay, and then zoning compliance officer. I believe that in like 2 budget cycles ago, we added a part-time zoning compliance that was supposed to be a weekend zoning compliance. But I don't see that.
I candidly have been a bit bewildered by that. But we did hire, we filled that position. I wasn't entirely sure what the intention was, but, she works as our zoning compliance officer. She works on the weekends. And, but she also does other maintenance responsibility, property maintenance and inspections. So that position's filled, even though it's referred to as property maintenance
No.
position. So there's some nomenclature that needs to be sorted out, but that person is actually working. We hired that person as a,
Okay, so we just need to rework this staffing.
That's right.
So that it better reflects exactly. I know that there's been a lot of building, particularly the house across the street from me, which I had noted, and a stop work order went out there. But there seems to be a lot of recent weekend work on properties, properties getting flipped, things like that. So it's really important that we have that person. And I also think that it would be nice if we had a way to contact that person in the moment.
right.
A phone number, something besides reaching out to you and asking for that, because Saturday morning at 10 o'clock when they're working, they're not working Monday morning at 9 o'clock. They're waiting until the next Saturday morning.
Okay.
And I see it happening a lot, and I'm guessing it's because people are remaining in place and doing work on their house versus moving out of those houses. So I think that that's a really important, and maybe that's not budgeting, but I'm happy to hear that that person actually exists. And I am looking forward to that short-term rental manager, as you know.
Yes.
It's the bane of my existence. I have complaints every single week. I have a gentleman who lives in Georgia, but his parents live here, and every time there's an infraction, his parents call him and he calls me, and he said, "How many times are we going to have to discuss I think I owe you a dinner because I'm talking to you so much and I've never met you. But it is literally every other week, and I know that you are trying to address it, but I'm hoping for that short-term rental manager sooner rather than. My other question was the economic development manager position that you're adding. Well, you're filling
Yes.
because it left. And you and I had talked offline about you were changing a little bit of the job description. Can you talk to that?
And if I can just tack on that, why that is the only other exempt position in this department.
Yeah.
It is the economic development manager is the only other position in the department besides.
I don't know why it was exempt. I've inquired with human resources, and we don't know. I wanted it not to be exempt. I thought the position ought to be like all the other positions in our department and not exposed to that risk. But the change couldn't be made in any reasonable time, particularly during the latter stages of the code and class study. It didn't seem practical, and so we went forward with it as an exempt, knowing that the change would be relatively complicated. I think would have to go to the Civil Service Board, but that could go forward after the person was hired. So it's not ideal, I know, but that's like the short-term rental position would be a contract employee, not a full-time civil service employee. I don't know why, but we'll make it work.
Thank you. And then my last question for you is Downtown Annapolis Partnership, and you have a staff member that is working with them now. There's a lot of questions about it as far as whether they're in compliance with the state rules and whatnot. I know that goes hand in hand with economic development because it is our businesses downtown that are most affected and benefit from that. Can you speak to that at all? And I see that there's 70, which we were told is an increase from last year that we're looking for, and then an additional 20 for the Annapolis Saloon. So 90 is going to them. Is that adequate for what their needs are?
So our department is concerned about the governance of that organization.
As am I.
Yeah, the economic development person in our office is assigned responsibility to provide some oversight of that, not in a formal way, but by virtue of the fact that the economic development manager is an ex officio member of that organization. I understand the organization is not met in a frequent way. It's not kept records and hasn't supplied the economic development manager with the documents that are required to be provided as part of the agreement that's set up DAP as the Main Street program. I'm aware that the state has some concerns about DAP and its compliance with the Main Street program that's established by state and its expectations. And without getting into too much detail, our department is taking action now to live up to those oversight responsibilities. And so that I'll leave it at that. I didn't propose, I suggested $50,000 because that was what was in the budget last time, as I remembered. And I'm even considering the possibility, should I have support, to withhold the actual allocation of that funding until I'm satisfied that the organization is on sound footing. So that's where things are with that. The flowers have always been something separate. It's always been $50,000 plus $20,000, and but the proposal in this year's budget is for $70,000 for DAP. My sense is that the dollars that are spent at DAP are well used and are very effective in generating energy and excitement and interest in downtown, particularly downtown businesses. And having a Main Street in a historic city, Main Street program is really important. And throughout my career, I've set up Main Street programs in cities and towns all over Maryland. So I'm really committed to the program because I know they work. But whatever the council decides to allocate is entirely, something we will do. We're not engaged in the day-to-day spending of that money or tracking it. So it's sort of a pass-through for us. And as I said, a previous economic development manager attended meetings when they were held, and we are aiming to get that organization set up so they're in compliance with the state's programs.
Great.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important when we start talking about economic development. And we've seen over the past 2 years some pretty major businesses leave and not be replaced. And I hear all the time, like, there's a restaurant every other space, but we need something to bring people down. And I'm hoping that economic development manager that you're looking to hire will be more than just a ribbon cutter. We have a lot of those. But leave that to the mayor.
Yeah.
But to really be focusing in on, I go to other cities and I see, major retailers that are there and making it there, and ask why they don't come to Annapolis, which would make complete sense. And they say it's because it's not a good fit model for them. So why are we not a good fit?
Right. Yeah. That's what I want to bring to bear in this new position. And not only that, higher level competent studies and information for you to make decisions. And I want us to beef up the monthly economic development reports that we provide. I want us to focus on the real threat to the maritime industry in Eastport and through the city entirely. So we need expertise in that area and someone who's vigilant and focused on that as well. And really very important to the overall mission of the department is we need the economic development manager to be an advocate and an understanding presence in our office as we do permitting. Not to say set aside the code standards, but be a voice for communicating what's necessary to comply with not just city code, but state and federal code, because we apply all of those. And usually it's the federal and state codes that are most complicated for people to adhere to. And we need someone to communicate that to businesses before they sign that lease. Because once they sign that lease, they're in a substantial, they're expending a substantial amount of funds, and they don't have the permit they need yet. And that's very difficult for the small businesses. So we have some retailers that are looking at spaces in downtown. The most complicated ones we deal with are restaurants, though, because we have the county health department, which is another layer of regulation that has to be managed. It's quite complicated. But without getting details, we've actually made a number of really neat changes in that process that will help. But we need that person to take that on as a responsibility.
Good. Thank you.
We've got about 5 minutes left here. I know I have quite a few questions. My colleagues be okay if we go a little bit over time?
I'm good. I do have one follow-up when you.
For you. Let's see where to start. Urban Forester. So I totally understand how that, well, maybe not totally, but I very much understand how that gets used within planning and zoning. I also see a lot of what our Urban Forester does that could be under Public Works. And I think in particular about how we're managing our street trees, and that is a function that could be under Public Works, or maybe even call it Central Services, probably Public Works. So I'd just like to hear from you a little bit about how you think, or do you think, that if that should stay, both of those positions stay under planning and zoning. Is there a way to ensure that they're focusing a little bit more on some of those street tree issues? Is there maybe a way that we have one in one department and one in the other? How do you think about that position and
Yeah.
why it should or shouldn't be in planning and zoning?
Let me preface it by saying that if I could operate our department with 2 or 3 people, that would be fine with me. I'm not interested in having more than we need. Having said that, I can 100% say that an urban forester ought to be within a planning department, not within public works. Public works is focused most importantly on public safety, the efficiency of roads, and maintenance of infrastructure. These are very important issues. It's good to have some tension there between that and the need for civic beauty and the benefits that trees provide and the dynamics of residents who want trees. If that function is in public works, it may lose out to very important standards and values like efficiency, safety, and ease of maintenance. When you think about those things, all of a sudden, street trees are a burden. They're an obstacle. So the way it works now is that Brian, who is an expert arborist, will work with Public Works to see what rules can be bent, where judgment can be applied to allow the preservation of trees. We're talking about preservation, not just the planting of new trees. So I think that having Brian in a different department is really, Brian Adams, I should say, our arborist, is actually very important to maintaining our tree canopy and our street trees. But a big part of what Brian does is planting trees on private property, is just the tree planting programs. And then the other part is to reviewing development plans, and our office reviews the development plans. So we have forest conservation requirements that are embedded in Title 21, landscaping requirements that inevitably require the planting of trees, critical area planting requirements, critical area buffer management. All that is regulated by the Department of Planning and Zoning, and that's like that in any jurisdiction in Maryland.
Got it. Okay.
yeah.
I think you've convinced me.
Okay.
I think the deputy city manager wants to weigh in.
Thank you, Alderman. I'm Jackie Guile, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability. Director Jakubiak started to hit on the point that I was going to make, that the arborist's evaluation for the Forest Conservation Act and critical area and other requirements we have per city code are directly part of the planning process. So when they're looking at a site, a construction site of any type, that those requirements kick in and are part of the permit in the end.
Got it. Thank you. Along those same lines, I noticed one of the budget highlights is moving tree program funding to the Watershed Restoration Fund. That makes a lot of sense to me, but could somebody maybe explain to me why it was under planning and zoning in the first place?
You might.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. So we have written in one of our FY26 budget highlights, moves tree program funding to the Watershed Restoration Fund. That makes a lot of sense to me. Why was it originally under planning?
Why wasn't it?
Why was it?
Why was it under planning and zoning before?
The Water Conservation Fund?
The tree program funding that is getting moved to the Watershed.
Oh, okay. I believe that was in planning and zoning
Yeah.
already. Now, Public Works has the Stormwater Conservation Fund, and we made part of the funding available to the street tree planting program because it's a stormwater retention mitigation, pollution control kind of thing. That happened a year or two ago.
Yeah, when the urban forestry, I think, function was in city manager's office, right? At some point, I guess the funding was there, but when he moved to planning and zoning, the funding came with planning and zoning. I think that's the essence of it. So there's that tree program, and it's perfectly fine to carve out a project under the budget line item called watershed management, and that project is substantial. I think it's about $500,000 a year that is for the tree program. So I think it was a procedural thing. The function moved to planning and zoning, so the funding moved with it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So before your time, Alderman Huntley, there was an Office of Environmental Policy,
Right.
which when my current position was created, went away. And so that's when the urban forester moved into planning and zoning. And as Director Jakubiak said, the money had to follow.
Got it. That makes sense. Also in the budget highlights, we have ads funding for mechanical inspector backup. That's distinct from the property inspector position, right? What
Yeah.
is a mechanical inspector backup?
Oh, glad you asked. When our mechanical inspector is out sick or on vacation, we can't complete inspections. And sometimes somebody may have to wait until our person comes back on vacation. And so this allows us to call in that function and have someone on contract to do that.
Got it. And so that'd be under contractual services. That makes a lot of sense. Something else. Had something else along those same lines. Not sure what it was. Last question then probably from me is about Maryland Hall. And this maybe goes to our finance director. We've been having a lot of discussions in the finance committee meetings about the best way to offset the permitting fees for Maryland Hall with their renovation. If I remember correctly, it's about $60,000. We were going to waive the fees. Then we decided, no, let's do it as a grant. Is the intention that grant for Maryland Hall to offset those permitting fees will be in FY25, and that's why it's not included in FY26?
If I may, you have an essay that you're about to hear for a grant for Maryland Hall.
Ah, great. Okay, so it'll get completed in FY25. That makes sense. I think that's all I had for you then. All right.
Alderman?
May I have?
Oh, yes,
question?
Alderwoman Phillips had a follow-up.
And maybe this is for HR. Small and minority business coordinator doesn't exist in the staffing chart. Has that title been changed to economic diversity specialist? I was trying to see what might have been comparable in that list.
Yeah, that title was changed as part of the code and class study to that.
Okay, so that should be on our list from HR of title changes. We were very deliberate in creating the small and minority business coordinator. And for it to be changed to something that's different is concerning, but more importantly, can't find it now. So I thought that position was an exempt position also, but it looks like not according to this.
No, and that's filled by Hope Stewart, who's very much employed with our department. And,
Has she taken the position, because she was like the second man in the department, and I forgot the gentleman's name who's gone now. Stephen Rice
Right.
held that position.
when Stephen Rice took the job at the state, when he left, I made Hope Stewart the acting economic development manager. So she's doing that job plus the small and minority business position that she's always been doing. So when we hire a new economic development director, Hope will then go back to full-time doing her current work.
Okay, so now she's doing two jobs.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah. Okay, just wanted to acknowledge. That was my other question. Mr.
Excellent.
Chair, thank you.
I'm going to toss it to Alderman Arnett if he's got one question, and then we'll close it out.
Well, if it can only be one question, I would say I appreciate your brevity, but in looking at your page 2, I would really like a lot more information on refocusing of the department. What are we moving from to what? This a notion of the permits initiator staff person sounds intriguing, but I'm not sure I get the full flavor of it. And the ambassadors of value and principles, again, sounds very intriguing. And I know you spoke to it briefly, but I didn't quite comprehend. And then last, I want to support the questions that Alderwoman O'Neill asked. It does make sense to put arts in public places along with the Main Street and the Arts District. And Alderwoman Finlayson and I were on the council when those two districts were created. But I think, at least from my perspective, they've sort of slipped through the cracks and don't really know what they're doing. But I know Governor O'Malley kept the Main Street program open for Annapolis, and we snuck in to get it, and that's because we thought it was valuable for the downtown. But maybe we need to be focusing more on that, and that speaks directly to the budget. It was $50K from day one. Inflation has gone up, costs of things gone up, and if the program is valuable, then maybe we need to put our money where our mouth is on that. So, you know, I know we're running late, but I think there's some really intriguing things on page 2 that I just send a text to you, Director, to get a little more information. But I would think everybody on the council would like to know a little bit more about these things.
Yeah, I would say I'm excited about some of what you were describing as well, and especially anytime you use the word innovation here. So I appreciate that, especially around permitting. Seeing no other questions, I will say, Director Jakubiec, I think we're completed with your presentation. Thanks for sticking around a little bit late, and thanks for an informative presentation.
Thanks for having
Have a
me.
good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have a supplemental appropriation. Is that, and that's under planning and zoning, right? Budget Manager Trudeau? Yes. So, okay, let's bring that up.
Put it in there.
Okay, so we're now considering SA 3025, which comes from the Reserve for One-Time Uses Fund. Oh, this is the Maryland Hall. Okay, yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Well, I feel like I've kind of already given the introduction to it. Is there anything any of you fine folks would like to say about this supplemental appropriation? Budget Manager Trudeau, Director Jakubiec, Director Moran, anybody? Like I said, I kind of already said it.
It's an appropriation that is necessary. It will allow for essentially a grant or some other type of coverage of the very high fees that this organization would have to incur in permitting fees to complete the capital expansion project that they're currently working on. And it's just as an aside, our department has already approved the plans. We review them, but we haven't issued the permit because we don't issue permits until there's a transaction of permit fees. So that's where things stand.
Great. And are we going to see further, if we say we approve this, we approve it today, and then the full council approves it on Monday, how much of a delay do we think will be before you can issue that permit?
We could issue the permit tomorrow, but just as a matter of policy, we've not, because we don't until fees are paid, or
right.
Until in this case, until the council signaled that in fact they intend to make this this supplemental appropriation. So
right.
We don't want to get out in front of you, but we could do it as soon as anytime.
Okay. I guess it's more a question to Director Moran then of what mechanically the money's got to go from us to Maryland Hall back to us. How long do we think that'll take?
I mean, I don't want to speak, but ultimately, as soon as you approve the SA, then they would have to follow for the permit. I think transaction wouldn't.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure we don't get stuck in something where the metaphorical check is in the mail and it takes a week to get there, and then it takes another week to send one back. And so it sounds like everybody's aware of that, and we can make it happen.
And they, I believe, want to begin construction, program construction to start in May. I don't know when in May, but May is not far from where we are today.
Thank you, Director. Is there any further discussion on this supplemental appropriation?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a recommendation that we give a favorable recommendation for SA 3025.
Thank
Second.
you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then we'll have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, or sorry, is there a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting
Thank you,
adjourns,
everyone.
11:56.